About 2 months ago, the Nigeria Incentive-Based Risk-Sharing System for Agricultural Lending, Microfinance Bank, on behalf of the Central Bank of Nigeria, started the disbursement of the 50 billion naira targeted credit facility to beneficiaries of the fund, designed to provide relief to small and medium-scale businesses from the coronavirus pandemic. To what extent has this line of subsidized credit been able to offer the intended relief? And what should the handlers of these funds do to give it the desired level of credibility and effectiveness? Joining us to look at all of these and other issues is Dr. Obadiah Mailafia, a former Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria. In the course of the conversation, Dr. Mailafia will also be looking at how COVID-19 can affect the build-up to the 2023 general election in Nigeria, particularly from the point of view of political economy. Good morning, Dr. Mailafia, and welcome to the Morning Show. Good morning.
Good morning, Ruben and the team. Thank you so much for having me.
Good morning.
Hope you're all keeping well and keeping safe.
Yes, thank you. And we're glad to see you in excellent health. Now, quickly, the palliative measures that have been adopted and applied by the federal government, the Central Bank of Nigeria, generated a lot of excitement. But you seem not to be too excited about how the palliative measures, particularly for small and medium-scale enterprises, has been managed. What are your concerns? What do you think the problem is? And what do you think can be done to address some of the concerns that have been raised?
Well, you see, Ruben, as far as these things go, it's not so much the policy as much as the implementation. I think a lot of good policies and initiatives have been put forward. You used the word excited. A lot of people felt very excited, and a lot of us welcomed those initiatives. But however, announcement is different from implementation and the nitty-gritty of getting these projects off the ground. And I've talked to a lot of people. When people hear, oh, I was formerly in the CBN, they want to come to me, they will seek advice, and they come back to tell me what they have gone through. Sadly, there are some intermediaries, there are some con men and con women who collect money from people in the promise of facilitating some of these things. And then a lot of people have lost money and they've not gotten any loans. So I wonder how, in concrete terms, some of these projects are being implemented. And also the palliatives, the government didn't come out very clearly. The government didn't come out very clearly on, the criteria for providing these palliatives and social safety nets. And, some of the interviews being made with the Minister for Humanitarian Affairs didn't give me enough room for comfort, and it raised even a lot of issues in the parliament. And within that period, one of the buildings went up in flames, and you ask yourself, really, what is going on? It is regrettable that in a time of crisis, and this is a time of crisis, that, people in power, people in authority will not be more sympathetic to the needs of the people. We've heard all kinds of stories, even in states where there are no COVID-19 real incidences, people are being pressured to accept that they have COVID-19 because a lot of money is coming if you claim that you are a victim, and so on. And it says very much about the nature of our country. And also use the word political economy, the political economy of development in this part of the world. We still have a long way to go. Having said that, I think the government did all they could. I think they made all the right noises. And we are happy that this pandemic has not been more devastating on our shores than had earlier been feared. After all, Melinda Gates claimed that she saw dead bodies rolling all over Africa. Thank goodness that evil prophecy did not come to pass. And so we are grateful for that. I think it may not have been so much what our authorities did than a little known fact that the gene pool of the African people is actually more diverse than that of Caucasians or even Asians. If you put 10,000 or 100,000 Africans, their gene pool will be more diverse than that of 1 million Europeans put together, which makes it more difficult for the epidemiology of spread of a virus such as COVID-19. So we are grateful, but of course, people have to continue to be disciplined and to be careful and to do all the right things. But I would give the government an average pass as far as the whole episode is concerned. But, not very impressive at all. And we still have a long way to go.
Well, Melinda Gates will never live down that comment that she made. But what you said, I have to ask you to expand on. That is quite the allegation that you just made so casually, that some states are under pressure to say they have or to claim that they have COVID-19 cases because it comes with funding. What do you mean by that?
Oh, no, there were interviews. I didn't say the states were under pressure. I said people, ordinary people, they've been interviewed. Look, they took me here. They told me I should confess that I have COVID-19, and then they'll give me some money. They give me 100,000. They give me a lot of other things. Some people have confessed on interviews, on public interviews by journalists about that in this country. So, there is anecdotal evidence that, it looks as if in some cases where even there's no much incident of it, they need to create evidence that there is COVID-19 because it is presumed that a lot of money goes with it. And even some questions are being raised about the actual level of the epidemiology of the spread in some of the states that are claiming that it is there. I'm not saying we should downgrade any fears or any concerns, but there could be elements of exaggeration because some money is attached to it.
I mean, I don't get the plot. I don't get what you're saying.
And I can tell you,
I don't get the plot because we've had two states now. Kogi, but finally Kogi has got a case of COVID-19 or two. But Cross River keeps insisting that, we have no case of COVID-19. Is it that Cross River doesn't want the money? Because if that's the premise at which you're building it, that, they announced that they have COVID-19. Because, this your premise is quite very important. Somebody came out to me over the weekend and said, a lot of governors that are coming out to say they have COVID-19, it could be political. And I said, what's the political thing to COVID-19? I don't get it. And now I'm hearing your premise that sort of like corroborates that claim. But is it that Cross River has enough money, they don't want the COVID-19 largesse, as you say?
Well, I'm not saying, look, this is a storm in a teacup. I just said there is anecdotal evidence that there may be cases in which some people may exaggerate the numbers because they believe that money comes with it. It does not apply to every state, and in this case, it doesn't apply to Cross River and Kogi that claim that there is no COVID-19 at all, which again might actually be doubtful. But, so it is. And there is a perception issue also widespread among Nigerians and even people in authority that some people have made fortunes out of this crisis. So this is the reality of the situation.
Well, Dr. Mailafia, the Presidential Task Force has been in the forefront of the fight against COVID-19. What's your assessment of the efforts made so far by that COVID-19 Presidential Task Force? Again, with regard to two recent issues, the decision to hold a 3-day fasting and prayer session, which ended yesterday, and then the decision to reopen schools, what they call safe opening of schools for graduating students at the primary and secondary school level. Do you think that that move is premature?
There are two separate issues now. I gave the task force a pass mark. I think a lot of effort has been put into it. But I also made the point that there is a perception, rightly or wrongly. And by the way, even people in the highest level of government are accusing each other of people having made fortunes from COVID-19. But I know that a lot of efforts have gone in. It's a question of trust. And the trust level in our country is very weak. Even within the ruling party, the trust level is very, very low. So people are always suspicious of even the best intentions of their colleagues. And that same thing has colored and overshadowed, the COVID-19 task force operations. But they've done their best. The Honorable Minister, the Secretary of the Government, I think they've put in a lot of efforts. And we have to respect that. But as the issue of prayer, there's a lot of hypocrisy in Nigeria. And I am one of those who insist strictly on the constitutional separation of religion from state activity. I don't like it at all. And I don't think, because there's too much hypocrisy. These same people that will be praying will go back in their closets and be doing very evil things. So I don't like that hypocrisy. Keep faith away from government. Let government be government. You can pray at home. You can fast for 40 days. I actually recommend it. But keep it away from your governmental functions because there's too much hypocrisy, too much lying when it comes to religion and people in power in this country. As for the schools, well, I just really think it's a bit premature. Some of the schools have actually used a lot of distance learning during this period, and we're all discovering technology and how useful it can be, and that a lot of these face-to-face meetings might not have been so necessary. And we're discovering that technology, in fact, provides an ample opportunity to deploy tools that don't necessarily involve, face-to-face learning. So I think it's a little bit premature. We should have waited for a few more weeks before making that sort of decision.
Thank you. What do you make of the government's response regarding our shortfall in revenue occasioned by the COVID-19 pandemic? And the usual response was borrowing. What should they have done? Did we miss a trick here? But we're going to go on a break, so when we come back, we'll take your answer. Please stay with us. Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. We're with Dr. Obadiah Mailafia. Doctor, before the break, I was asking you about the lack of creativity, basically, that's shown with this constant recourse to borrowing. And what are your thoughts on that?
Well, thank you. But if I may gently correct you on the spelling, on the pronunciation of my name, it's Mailafia.
Mailafia.
And in the Hausa language, Mailafia. And it means, even Yoruba, they say Alafiani.
Yes.
It's from that same root. It's somebody who brings peace and goodwill. and well-being. So I am sending to all of you peace, goodwill, and good fortune. That is the meaning of my name.
Gratefully received, and we're sending it back to you. I beg your pardon about that mispronunciation.
Thank you. No problem. It's not only you. A lot of people don't pronounce it properly. And yeah, the revenue is a big challenge. I wrote an article the other day saying when government goes for broke, that in fact it's a serious revenue crunch. And as you know, 2 weeks ago, it was actually announced that we were paying, 99% of our receivable revenue was directly what was required to pay our outstanding debt servicing obligations. And that is very unprecedented in the history of public finance in this country. So there is a revenue crunch, and we have to take very bold action. A lot of the things we are not hearing, first of all, cost saving. Nobody is talking of where do we save costs. If I were president, I'll send an order to every minister and every director general and head of agencies and ministries and departments of government to bring me a program of cost cutting. What is it that you could cut out from expenditure that will not bring your ministry or department to a grinding halt? We need that kind of conversation. We need to cut costs. We need to reduce waste. And also double up on the requirement and imperative of blocking all financial hemorrhages in the public financial and public expenditure system. We are not hearing enough of that kind of conversation. And I suspect that there's a lot of waste in government. There are areas in which there could be cost cuts.
Looks like there is a connection with the internet there. Yeah. Dr. Mailafia, are you back with us? He's not hearing us, and he was making an important point.
Very important.
About how to cut costs.
Yeah.
There's too much waste.
Too much waste,
and leakages.
Yeah.
But the funny thing about this is we know. I'm sick and tired of things we know that we do not do anything about. We know we have set up a machinery in place, the Oronso report. Why wasn't it implemented when the report came out? Why do we have to wait?
But you know why.
Why
it suits certain people. Any system you see is created and maintained deliberately because it benefits certain people.
Because we all know the problem of this country as we speak. We all know the reasons for the
like he's back with us.
Back on? Okay.
He's back with us. Dr. Mailafia? Dr. Mailafia?
Yes, sir.
Okay. There was a technical glitch there. Yes, we can hear you clearly now. Yes. If you may just continue with the point you were making about cutting cost.
Yes, Ruben, I was saying that we haven't had enough conversation on the idea of cutting cost. And that if I were president, I would ask every ministry, department, and agency of government to submit to me a program of cost cutting. That which areas could we do without the department grinding to a halt? And I suspect there are a lot of those areas. And then the second conversation has to be on blocking hemorrhages. There's still a lot of financial hemorrhage in our system. And we need to work on that in order to ensure that, there is absolute prudence in the way financial system, our finances are managed. And the truth of the matter is that all the macroeconomic science in the world shows that you should not be raising taxes at a time when the economy is literally on ground zero, because you are simply going to kill the chicken that lays the golden goose, the goose that lays the golden eggs. So that wouldn't be good enough. And then, of course, the instinct of the current administration is just to go borrowing. And we have to be careful with that because our debt continues to mushroom, and nobody is thinking how to, to control it. And we wonder even more about what a lot of those loans have been used for. I'll give you just one example, Mambila. I'm told that nothing is going on in Mambila, but we've borrowed more than $3 billion. In fact, somebody in Paris has taken us to court for breach of contract, I hear. So, there's a lot of confusion everywhere. And that is what happens when the economy is run by charlatans.
And like you said about Mambila, there are judgments everywhere waiting for us. P&ID, we're still going through that bout. And we've got others, that only with time will come out to the fore. But we have a pathway to getting out of this. Two pathways. A Rossaway report and a more definitive pathway of restructuring, making the center very small. Because apparently, because the center is very big, controls many things. And that's why you're having this cascading effect on the state. And that's why the National Assembly, for instance, would want to use about over 30 billion for renovation. When shocking enough, we still have a National Assembly complex in Lagos here. This is the only country I know that's got two National Assembly complexes. One in Lagos, one in Abuja, incurring cost here and there. Why didn't we implement the Rossaway report when it came out? And what's the way forward as regards restructuring?
The budget for education, I think, is 63 billion. That of health is maybe 48 billion. That of the National Assembly, 127 billion. Nigeria is the only country I know in the world where a budget of 500 parliamentarians is quadruple, is at least almost quadrupled that of, at least two times, that of education or health. That is a sad commentary, a very sad commentary. It could never happen in the United States, and the United Kingdom, for example, or even the United States, that the British Parliament, the House of Commons, and the House of Lords, that their budget could be, by any stretch of the imagination, more than the budget that is committed to the great NHS, the Great National Health Service of Britain, or the whole education, budget of the United Kingdom. It is only in Nigeria that such folly can be committed. And it is because those who make the laws and those who appropriate the budget insist on, cutting their own share first. And, that is bad form. That is bad government, actually. And it is shameful, but that's how it is in our country. Well, restructuring is on the table. It's part of the ongoing conversation we are having in this country. But before that takes place, we have to even put what we can do in order, put our whole house in order, manage our finances better. Somebody said that before you can become a minister of finance or a governor of a central bank, go to the mirror and practice how to say no. Just say no, 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 and put your foot down and stamp your authority. No 1 naira should go out of your house without knowing that this money is being spent for the public good. My greatest mentor and philosopher is Obafemi Awolowo. And you would recall that when he was Minister of Finance and de facto number 2 in the whole country.
Well, Dr. Mailafia, sorry to interrupt you. Sorry to interrupt you. We need to go on a short commercial break. When we return, the conversation will continue. Please stay with us. Welcome back to the morning show here on the Arise News channel. Still with us is Dr. Obadiah Mailafia, the former Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria. Now, Dr. Mailafia, you were talking about restructuring. I'd like you to complete your thoughts on that. And then when you finish, I'd like to have your comments on this policy that the CBN has been talking about, ensuring a convergence of the foreign exchange rate. Only a few days ago, the Central Bank of Nigeria set a ceiling of $380 naira to the dollar at the SMIS window. And we told that, look, the ultimate plan is to bring that window as close as possible to the IIE window in order to have that convergence, and that this will be reviewed according to market fundamentals. What do you think of that policy? And what do you think of this idea of a unified Forex rate? First, the points you were making about restructuring.
Well, restructuring is something that I believe, I'm deeply convinced we need in this country. And I know there is the political dimension of it, which people are very scared of. People in the far north, are fearful of losing their own privileges. They are fearful of losing power and so on. But I think we need that restructuring. And the 1999 Constitution is defective for one fundamental reason. It begins with "we the people." And you cannot run a country on the basis of a lie. It's a lie to say "we the people," because we the people never sat down anywhere and designed that constitution. It was manufactured in the dark chambers of General Abacha's brutal, despotic dictatorship. That's number one. Number two, it has so many egregious injustices. I mean, Lagos, Kano have about the same population. Why should Kano have 44 local governments when Lagos has only 24? Just an example of that, And even in my home state of Kaduna, they designed the constituencies so that they gerrymandered the constituencies. They took Saminaka, which is part of southern Kaduna, and lumped it under the emir of Zaria, thereby giving the same two federal constituencies, while the whole of southern Kaduna has only one constituency. So that, in short, by just this shenanigan, the majority become the minority. So a lot of these things have happened all over the country. So we have to redesign a constitution that is based on the fundamental and the inherent and real will of all of us, all the people of Nigeria, equally. Thirdly, we need not more than maybe 8 regions, We need the far north, we need the middle belt, we need the west, we need what Obasanjo, Awolowo would have called the Ogoja Efik area, and then part of the south, and then the other part, Delta and the old Edo and so on, another part. So that, and then the east. So maybe 6, 7, 8 regions, but not based on the 6 geopolitical zones, because the 6 geopolitical zones does serious, gross injustice to the middle belt. They call it North Central. Whereas the actual middle belt, and this matter was debated in Parliament only 2 weeks ago, the real middle belt is not just Plateau, Benue, Taraba, it's also southern Borno, southern Adamawa, southern Kebbi, southern Kaduna. All of that should constitute a region. And every nationality should have the right to decide by referendum which region they want to belong to. And then we devolve as much power as possible to the regions, including the right to have electricity and infrastructures, and also to cooperate with contiguous regions in some of those major projects, and decentralize the financial system, But at the same time, the federal government should remain strong. I don't want a completely weak federal center. No, you need a commander-in-chief who is strong enough to command the armed forces for national defense and security, and for looking after things like, the currency, central bank monetary policy, the ports, and the rest of it. So, and then, this is the sort of thing we need in order to have a vibrant democracy and a vibrant federal system where everybody feel that they have a place. And with regard to the exchange rate regime, Ruben, at one stage we had even up to 12 exchange rate systems. So if you know me, I know you, I give you at a different rate. If I don't know her, she doesn't know me, then I give her at a more expensive rate. You see? So a lot of, and I consider it the iniquity of our system. All these niceties about what window, market fundamentals, it's all nonsense. There's no such thing. You can decide tomorrow to have one unified system, and we need a unified system. They kept all these various systems just for corruption and rent-seeking behavior. When we were in the CBN, we took a bold decision to unify the rate. Let there be a law of one rate. It's more transparent, it's less susceptible to abuse and to corruption and rent-seeking behavior. That is the way we need to go. And this actually is the time to do it, when the economy is, at a very low ebb, and this is the time to do it. And it makes for clarity, it makes for more financial discipline. And that's the way to go.
Thank you, Doctor. Well, you know that proverb about a society grows great when old men plant trees, when they know they're not going to sit under the shade. And when you know that proverb, you understand why Nigeria is where it is today, with all this short-sightedness and selfish self-interest that we see all over the place. Which brings me to my question about the NCF, the National Consultative Forum, which you have been linked to, or are you going to be one of the three, well-known figures who have denied being linked to that? Because there was some excitement about this political movement, as it's been described, with this pantheon of greats, including yourself, who are involved in it. But then the fact that people like Olusegun, Femi Falana, a retired colonel, Umar Dangewa, had to disown it, to sort of put a dampener on things. Can you tell us about that?
Well, actually, just yesterday, no, actually Saturday, I sent in my own reactions for the first time through social media. Maybe it has not been seen all over, but this is what I said, that I've been under pressure to make my position clear with regard to the communique issued by the National Consultative Front. This is, my view is that I was invited to join a social platform to discuss how to salvage Nigeria. I gladly accepted this. Now, the National Consultative Platform is not the only platform. I'm a member of several other platforms. In fact, there were so many of them that at one stage, I decided to just disengage from them, and there was an uproar. They called me saying, who offended you? Tell us the person that offended. I said, no, nobody offended me. I just felt that, look, there are just too many of these forums and too many of these, social platforms. And it's not easy to keep up to date with them. They keep bombarding you with text messages and so on and so forth. So they pleaded with me to join, to rejoin, which I did. But there was a lot of discussion, very interesting discussion. And then suddenly a communique was issued. And I said, no, this looks like an ambush. There was nowhere we signed an MOU or some kind of legal understanding saying that we are now a political grouping. I know that we've been a discussion group, we've been a social platform, having very intense discussions on all sorts of subjects, including a future political grouping and a future political party. But nothing yet was concretized, and this COVID-19 has made it difficult, impossible for us to actually meet face-to-face. So there would have to be a Congress, a convention, where such a decision is made. So that communique, as far as I'm concerned, was premature. But I don't like being a copycat. Just because somebody is doing it, they came out loudly, Agbakoba and all of them, came out loudly and publicly disowned them, that I should do the same thing. Number one, I don't like being a copycat. I'm always me and myself, and I think for myself, and I react for myself. Thank goodness I don't live only for myself. But, I wouldn't want to publicly disgrace and humiliate people that we have been in conversation with. But in private, I told them what exactly I felt, and they apologized and respected me for my stand. So I'm not going to go public and make all that noise, condemn people that we've been in conversation with. But at the same time, they'll be careful not to be presumptuous, not to jump the gun, and not to run, a dialogue process through ambush, because this is what it was beginning to look. But you are right. The announcement led to an unbelievable upsurge of interest and euphoria. And to my surprise, just a communique that, there's a political grouping, even it sent shivers down the corridors of power in this country. So despite the mistake of if issuing a communique before actually, we had crossed the bridge, shows, elicited such reactions that that makes me understand that the youth of this country are desperate. The people of this country have become desperate. And they are not just looking for politicians of the old type. The people who are these hungry people who are only thinking of how to fleece everybody and collect public money and buy properties in Dubai. These are the kind of people we have running the show. The Nigerians that own tomorrow want a different type of leader, people who have, who believe in science, who believe in progress, and who have the fear of God in their hearts, not in their mouth, and who love Nigeria truly, and who have that lion-hearted courage to bite the bullet and to take this country forward by fire, by thunder, to use the language of one of the Pentecostal groups. So this is really my stand on this matter. So the discussion is still going on. I haven't pulled out. I told her, look, as far as I'm concerned, I was invited to a social platform. We're still having discussion. And when the discussion metamorphosed into or consolidate into a real political grouping,
point very clear.
We have all signed up to it.
Point well made. I'm sure that the organizers will take note of this. And thank you very much, Dr. Mailafia, for joining us today on The Morning Show.